And I don't know if you want to just like, approach.
I was thinking about it, but
Open and see, right, like, first. You have a vote.
hardly wrong. I'm trying to go back. I'm gonna show. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Actually, Brett's going to go up the aisle. I'm fine. I think it's what you
a nuance of 94C that I'm sure everybody here is aware of is that in Article 10, this is a lot as well. Under 94C, if a developer deems or an apartment deems that any local provisions are overly burdensome, is what 94C regulations say, you can seek a waiver for OREDs from that local law. Now, what I can tell you by bringing probably 4 or 5 of these utility scale projects through the 94C process now is that the Office of Renewable Energy and Siting doesn't have a large appetite to grant waivers. They haven't done it, they've waived local provisions, but it's a pretty robust kind of ask and answer process. We allow provisions, they really kind of go out of their way to make. Why is this overly burdensome to that community? Why can't you apply to their local laws? So that essentially every time the developers ask for a waiver, it's been a pretty robust conversation. They've only granted 2 so far from 2 projects. So a part of that enforcing process also requires municipalities to submit a statement of compliance with local laws. At least 60 days after the issue of the draft permit. In that compliance statement is there's also you say that they're not applying to this local law provision. The municipalities did that override, and we also say that our application for local community interveners in host town and host towns are to see if they're doing funding. That's similar to our, and once you submit a permit, $1,000 per megawatt of the project. 75% of those funds are for the rest kind of just next in 30 days of funding. It also requires a post benefit agreement, HCA, whatever you want to call it, has to be now. You have to show the pilot, the ORED is through the permitting process. So all those things have to be worked out, and then they're submitted as part of any course process.
It's not going well.
Maybe because you moved to the screen.
Over, Josh. You back on the computer. There we go. All right, so as I say, 94C is pretty robust. It has a pretty robust schedule and timing as well. And some of the big long, and why it takes so long to kind of go through that process. There's 25 exhibits that have to be part of their application. Those are listed up here. I don't have to do all of them. But the number 5 is a big one. That is your actual, IFP site plan drawings of the facilities. That takes a lot of time. It's essentially how to develop. Public health safety is a big one. Noise and vibration, visual impacts. Gets a lot of attention. Runs of water bodies, T&E species, recommended species, really large part of the process. Agricultural impacts. Obviously, where most of these projects are stuff that are ag lands. Many of the prime farmland, and also these ones before. So that has become a big talking point, a big point of focus. We also renewable energy siting in conjunction with here are state private ag markets. There's all sorts of agricultural mitigation now that is being required. Not only compensatory mitigation from, like, if you get a contract from NYSERDA, you have to pay essentially some mitigation funds for agricultural effects. The Office of Renewable Energy Siting has also implemented the requirement of a co-utilization plan. And what that co-use plan requires is that you implement some type of farming activity in and around or contiguous to either your array or your wind farm, depending on the amount of mineral soil that you impact. A lot of that right now for AES, I think most developers, it looks like sheep grazing to maintain the arrays in the areas, bees, that pollinators, apiary type situation. But AES is also, we have some pilot programs that we have where we actually have cattle being grazed and row crops being planted on some smaller, 5 megawatt arrays. And we're kind of seeing how that looks and how we can scale into some of these larger arrays. Still a lot of work to do there. We've partnered with like Cornell University and some other academia kind of come out there to study and help us inform, maybe one of the best farming practices in our arrays. But what we do know is that it is a requirement, and honestly, it makes sense. There's a lot of land to be utilized in and outside and around these facilities that very much can be farmed, and there's really no reason why it shouldn't. But the first step of that, submit it into the 15 to the Office of Renewable Energy, what your agricultural impacts are, how you propose to mitigate that, and sort of dialogue that way. And a lot of that dialogue is really dictated by the local farmers. Most of these are farmers that are leasing land from, or at least 10 farmers that are farming that land. They may have ideas up in Somerset, Niagara County. We're looking at perhaps co-use just maybe some soil amendments or some new tile lines on some of the different fields adjacent, things like that. Or maybe not an exact facilities may improve and enhance the farming operations. Yeah, so that's it. So kind of how the process looks for 94C. You submit the application, the office reviews it, they have 60 days. They say, oh, hey, yeah, your application is deemed complete. More often than not, they say, oh, you're deficient, we need more information. You respond to those deficiencies, you submit it, another 50-day clock starts. Hopefully by then you're deemed complete, your application is. From the day you're deemed complete, the office then is on the 1-year clock to either submit or deny your permit, your approval of your site permit. For the day you're deemed complete. So that's really what a developer is looking for. To get deemed complete, because that starts with one year regulatory clock from the Office of Energy site. So that happens. There's public comment periods during that period. There's issue hearings, and there is an issue where you go in front of an administrative law judge. It can get administered and kind of worked out that way. And ultimately leads to the final siting permit. So you're not there yet. You have your final siting permit. Now ORES has what they call pre-construction compliance filings. So now you're kind of on the hook to say, great, you've contemplated all of the impacts that are required in 94C. Now you have to submit these compliance filings. Essentially, it's your final, the final, best, most thorough site plan you have, SWIFs, stormwater pollution prevention plans, transportation studies, all those types of things. You submit those, and then you get your NT. That construction starts happening. So essentially, once you get your final site permit, it's about 6 months to a year probably for breaking ground on construction. You still have to get your final notice to proceed from the office. Before we just go over, I think there was some questions about transmission and maybe the overall development process. So even before, Brett got this, so we have to have land, obviously. We have to have, conversations with the localities, the towns in the county to make sure that, we're welcome there. It's just not going to be an all-out battle right from the jump. That's important. So once you kind of have those conversations, land established, a relationship started with the locality, then you start doing, okay, can we interconnect? Can the grid support a project of this size? Or what size project can the grid support at this location? So you do your system reliability impact studies, your SRIS, the acronym there. Your class year studies that Brett was talking about, after the current class year study process that kind of contemplates and reviews all of the current power being produced and how that impacts the transmission and any projects that will be, in the near future coming online. And that takes about 2 years. So in parallel, you're permitting the New York ISO is reviewing your project in the class year. And then you're kind of formulating the project looks like. The most important part from the development side is some of these upgrades to get to this transmission question are very expensive. The New York ISO said, yes, you can interconnect, but it's going to cost you both the time in large scale projects, it's $10 million to upgrade the current facility to deliver your power. And then we get to the bean counters and we say, well, okay, can we support 20 million on top of all the other capital and operational expenditures the project has to endure? And that's how you get back your way into if you have a profitable project. It's a big thing right now because almost all of the transmission systems in New York are anyway. It's not a drug problem, it's really a country problem as well. So you're kind of, you can do some internal math, you can do your own studies and kind of come up with a number of what you think it's going to cost to upgrade. But pursuant to other projects, interactions, how many there are, it could be a substantial amount of money, oftentimes it is. I will say, just being frank, 10 to 20 million is probably normal and probably enough for a project, to probably support that. In New York, given kind of the current market as we know it, and the CapEx that we know, anything above that it gets pretty tight. So this is definitely a point, an important point that we're raising with the state Department of Public Service Commission. To say, hey, if you want this electrification to happen, by 2030 for the CLCPA, we're going to need some help. We can't bear the cost of a $200 million system from the northern countries, wherever it needs to go. And that's being contemplated right now. There's been some things approved. There was a program called Tier 4, essentially NYSERDA, that, hey, power producers and transmission owners, operators, developers, you all get together and you come up with a proposal to get power onto a high voltage transmission line and make it work. And that was approved. That process is happening. There's also other upgrades, phase 1 and phase 2A upgrades. You'll hear us say they're being contemplated, essentially approved by DPS, where they're providing some assistance and some support. The state is to upgrade some other facilities, all in different parts of New York. We have one project, 100 megawatt project in the country that's totally reliant on a phase 2A upgrade that's kind of being administered by the Department of Public Service, the PSC. A project that works pencils, it has a $100 million upgrade cost that obviously the project can't bear. And so essentially you have to make it deliverable and it needs out there. These 2A upgrades are coming in from the state. So that's the real quick on the transmission front. It's a great question, and it's something that needs to be alleviated for sure.
Before you get into wind, do you do any community solar?
Yeah, we have a lot. Interesting fact. I'm a landowner in Orleans County, and I have a small 5 megawatt community solar project being put on property I own by AES. So that's an interesting. Yeah, we have many right now. We're prospecting probably 50 or 60 different community solar sites throughout the state, and many of those projects that actually are on that map that Brett was showing, many of those are distributed generation community solar projects.
Is it like 5 megawatt?
Yeah, 5 megawatts.
I think that's the limit for community.
Yeah, that's 100% right. Yeah, we do many of those, and the new Inflation Reduction Act, the IRA that came out, built in quite a bit of incentives for developers to keep pursuing community solar projects, as ITCs and PTC.
We have 2 poles.
Yeah, and I think that's probably. I think you'll definitely see an uptake in those community solar. Definitely, New York's done a good job at providing support for those, and how the federal government's kind of got behind as well. The IRA. I kind of touched on some broad brushstrokes there. Any other questions on permitting, interconnection, is kind of an all process, or we jump over to actually happening on the ground, or in there. Thank you, appreciate it. Go
I
ahead.
have a quick question on you keep saying the millions of dollars it's gonna cost to get it connected and whatnot, and let's face facts, you're heavily subsidized by the government. This is not profitable in the business world without the subsidies and everything. And the money you guys are paying to rent land from farmers or landowners is obscene in the ag world, because there's no agricultural product we can supply. And yet, when you come to the towns, you ask for a pilot, because without the pilot, it's not sustainable. But you're paying obscene monies to the landlord. I'm not trying to take away from the landlord at all. I mean, they got the land, and they should be the ones benefiting, but you're coming back to municipalities and asking. So where do these numbers come from? Who's coming up with the thought? Well, I know something that's coming from the government, but in your guys' world, who's saying, well, I can pay 1,100, or I can pay 1,200, or I can pay, I'm hearing over $1,400 an acre. When just a few years ago, it was $1,000 an acre, which was obscene for the ag world. At $1,000 an acre, now it's getting to 1,400. Where is that going to stop? In my eyes, my question. And who comes up with these numbers? I mean, because you guys are involved in it, so I need to know where these numbers come from constantly. that, you're putting more money out there, but you're asking municipalities to give up, their tax share, I guess, and, it just puts a sour taste in the community's mouths. When they find out what people are getting paid, and then we're giving them a pilot. I hear it quite often when I've offered a pilot to a couple solar projects in my town.
Yeah,
So,
great question, you just put it in there, so, yeah, and as far as the land, acquisition cost, well, 1,000% right, I was getting $60 an acre for cabbage on the property I own, and solar folks came before I worked at AES, and I was like, that's bigger for me.
right.
So that's fair down, and that's the advertising part of it, to landlord in general. But where the numbers come from, so there's a lot of expenditures that go into a project. And it's like when you buy a car, you pay a certain price, you do the trade-in value, you can kind of work the numbers, speed it away, take away from your trade, add more to the sale, whatever. Type situation. So we have these input sheets. These input sheets contemplate 100 different inputs of financial inputs into the project that you run into a financial model. So the variation you see oftentimes in landowner payments, let's say, or this could even apply to pilot payments, is we do our internal study, we come up with, okay, what do we think this is going to cost to essentially interconnect it? And there's a big variability in that cost, depending on what the infrastructure looks like, what the existing substation looks like. So it could be anywhere from, we've had projects that have, say, $600,000 upgrades, literally to $20, $30, $40 million upgrades. So you do those internal studies, and you put that line in the spreadsheet. You think it's going to cost X million dollars. And then you say, okay, what do we think the operation is going to look like in this area? What do we think insurance is going to cost? What do we think one of the many of the hundreds of capital expenditures cost? You put it to a spreadsheet, and you say, okay, here's where we make the return rate that we want to make as a company. And then if you work numbers from there, you can get, if you have to pay more to a landowner for whatever reason, because they would like more money, the land's worth more, you're in a different area, maybe you're in the Finger Lakes, you're on some frontage lakes, maybe it's super prime farmland, the best of the best, if you're on muckland where I'm from. And you have, so you say, okay, we can pay more to the landowner, but we have to take something from somewhere else. Where do we decide the number? Maybe we can get a little better deal with the town, so that the town still gets some of the pilot money, because then we can pass that along to the landowner to acquire the land. Maybe it's vice versa. Maybe the landowner is okay with maybe $800 or $1,000 per acre. That can open up some more funding for pilot type negotiations or a post-trade benefit. And that's really the numbers. It's gotten competitive out here from the developer side for land acquisition. All the kind of the low-hanging apples are kind of taken. The areas where that had landowners that wanted it, that were close to substations, that had capacity on them, those are kind of gone. It's gotten pretty competitive, so you've got to pay more for land. You had to. We have landowners that maybe are on the fence about this. Maybe they don't want to. Maybe they do. That costs more money to go that route. I will say I think pilots that have gone up to, from what I've seen, I think pilots kind of interact with the Department of Tax and Finance model, right? The taxing model says how you tax a solar energy facility, and that's kind of the. If it's not a pilot, it's this model. You run your numbers into the model. This is what you can pay at full assessed value. And then the pilot number kind of comes from it. That full assessed value, maybe it's time to make up numbers here. Maybe it comes out to $9,000 a megawatt. So you try to work on a savings on a pilot program. It's guaranteed. The DTI amount changes every year, right? It can fluctuate up and down. Everybody kind of knows the playing field. That's the beauty of a pilot for us. Is we know, for 15 or 20 or 25 or 30 years, however long the life of a pilot is, we know what that number is. And then you can put it into a model, and it just makes it's a safer spot for us to work in, because we have a lot of costs. That's right, everybody can finance and budget, yeah. But that's a little bit of why you see varying payments, and there's a lot of inputs, and you can kind of move the numbers around all over the sheet to make it work, at whatever the sensitivities are of the project.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So there are another term that you're forgetting is community host agreement. Ours isn't a pilot, ours is a community host agreement, but we're getting paid money, and it's not a reduction of taxes. So that's how we're actually have 0 ton taxes to the community opposed to. If it was 100% pilot agreement, which is kind of what happened like with the Shelton Fire Department. They came in, there was a whole bunch of added assessed value, then that lowered the taxes to the rest of the people within the district. That special district.
And pursuant to this title, the 94C of overrides option legislating, they did do it for their base. They were done.
Yeah, I saw that.
I appreciate it. Appreciate it.
Sure. Yeah, no. Thank you. Sounds good. So I'm gonna be a little shorter, just because the update on repower hasn't really changed much, but especially on the operations side. But I'm also gonna join the ops piece with repower. And before I jump to the repower slide, just kind of put in perspective of where we are from an ops today standpoint. And I think one of the things that I really try to bring out early on in any of these conversations, specifically with Bliss and Weathersfield, but also at the 4 wind projects in North Country, largely because now I'm managing those projects as well. But you know, I take pride in the fact that 10 out of the 13 wind technicians, total of 16 employees here for Bliss and Weathersfield that manages these parks are homegrown technicians and homegrown people that got roots here. Whether it's Bliss, Weathersfield, Beansville, or Katy Jaba. So I take pride in that. And then the same thing we set up north. 90% of the technicians up there, 20 technicians, they're all homegrown. So it allows us to really take some ownership of these wind sites and have some pride and really vested in the game here of operating these machines. And just kind of managing through, as we all did, COVID was a pretty big deal. Kind of restricted not just how we performed our daily ops, but it also put a pretty good squeeze on us as far as getting the equipment we needed to continue to maintain these turbines at a high level. We established a 97.5% availability rate. We're sitting at one year, which was last year, we missed our budget as far as production. And that was in large part because components weren't readily available for us to keep these turbines running. And that's over the 6 wind projects, not just Bliss and Weathersfield, just to do our one a little bit. Bliss and Weathersfield typically carry the 6 projects, especially the Weathersfield site. That's usually the overproducer. For whatever reason, a lot of it has to do with elevation and placement, but the Weathersfield wind park just produces better than the 5 projects. From a wind production standpoint. So, I guess again, I'll tie in some ops pieces to this just because I think it's important that, you're familiar with kind of the struggles we've had, and it also it ties into the benefits of repower, and of course, sooner the better from a repower perspective for us, from an operating perspective, not just, the financial piece is obviously one thing that's extremely important, but for us, it's also the longevity of the existing equipment. If we don't repower this project, for a 6-year period of term, on whether it's a host community or pilot, it's irrelevant. It's a 6-year term that's left on the Bliss project, and it's a 7-year term left on the Weathersfield project. When those expire without repower, projects are done. From the perspective of we've got to bring in engineers, we've got to look at the equipment, make sure it has structural integrity to continue to operate. The challenge that we're already seeing is from a budget perspective, the projects have been running for anywhere from 12 to 15 years. We were spending on an annual basis about $300,000 to $400,000 a year repairing these blades. We just spent $1.2 million this year because the blades are starting to fatigue. And we avoid having the failures that you're seeing as you drive around the inventor projects. We're not throwing blades like lawn darts into the fields. We like to keep them attached to the turbine and keep them producing. So we're really trying to salvage what we have, because replacing 3 blades today is $386,000 from GE, not including the crane at $150K. So you do the math, you're over $500,000. We're repairing these at about $20,000. But we're also seeing our budget increase by more than double, just to keep these things operating safely. Because that's our priority, is to keep them operating safely, but also efficient. So that kind of ties into this. And the repowering process is, it's not entirely clear. What I do know is based off of the slide. Thank you, Emily. Yes, that's right. You know what I should have mentioned? Emily Taylor will be here, but she unfortunately has come down with an illness, so she couldn't be here to communicate the repower. So I'm sorry about your loss of that. So from a repowering perspective, the foundations are going to be reinforced. That has to happen to support the loads that are going to come with the extended blades. The blades are going to be 20 feet longer, but they're not going to be heavier. The intention of the longer blades is to capture more wind at lower wind speeds, as well as optimize wind in the middle range, which I think is depicted in another slide. So that is the intent with the blades, and as far as the retrofit to the foundations. We're not moving turbines, so where they exist today, that's where they're going to be when the repowering project is done. We will be utilizing existing roads, however, they're going to require a lot of additional work. They're just, I mean, unfortunately and fortunately, we are in ag counties, and these tractors need to help out the roads. It's not our plow trucks that are destroying the roads, it's the tractors and the heavy equipment going down them, which we share the roads, and we're perfectly fine with that. And actually, it's worked out pretty well. There's been times where they actually regrade the roads for us, and they didn't intend to, we just forgot to put their plow. So it's not a huge challenge for it, but there will be some civil work that has to be. The existing underground, that's a given. We're not increasing our energy output to the grid. It's going to be the same. We're going to still be at the 1.6 megawatts. The rotor diameter, obviously, 2400 blades. Rotor diameter increases 97 meters. And then we're also replacing the drivetrain, as well as a refurbishment on every generator. So the only key piece to this is not being exchanged out is the YOSs, which GE has done repower projects all across the country. They don't typically touch the YOS system, which is the head turning and winding. We haven't found a real major concern with that yet, and I don't anticipate there being one. However, there are some smaller components built into the YOS system that we are struggling with from a downtime and production standpoint, but it still ties back to manufacturing, COVID-related pandemic that took place. There's not getting those parts where we need. We expect that to improve. We also, just to point that out, internally, we have taken some innovation steps, and we are actually rebuilding a lot of these components that we're struggling to get. We're rebuilding them in-house, plus using small machine shops. So that is also a step that we're taking to try to offset that. The 20% plus increase in energy production, that obviously ties back into lower wind speed, capturing energy at lower wind speeds. We're all about optimizing that middle sweet spot. And then obviously it extends the project life by 30 years. That's the intent with repower. Am I missing anything here, Greg?
As you tell me, we have a pretty good relationship with our townships who are in this. You know, Jay talks about regrading the roads with kind of a joking atmosphere. The relationship we have, our operations team has with towns is great. It goes both ways. And I'm proud to say, and I'm thankful too, because relationships make a big difference.
I'm extremely thankful because relationships and quite honestly, if it's the air that they breathe in the northern part of the hemisphere in New York, but it's just a different mentality and attitude. Like, usually starts out in a screaming match from the landowner's perspective, and then you just kind of like, hey, I'm gonna let you finish here. Where here it's a conversation from the start. So I really appreciate the landowners we deal with here, vice the landowners up north. But we're getting there, and it's all about this. Don't promise what you can't keep. So it's pretty important. And there's 396 of them as well, so it's a very large number. So again, I was mentioning the lower wind speeds. If I can figure out how long they're. Yeah, thank you. So this is kind of showing your difference with the 77 meter rotor versus the 97. Obviously, the yellow bars are the 77 meter. That's what we have today. 7 would be after repower. So what this is essentially showing is kind of where we are currently with output production. This is December 2018 to 19 power production, and then the benefits of the longer blades and the repower project. And as you can see, we're capturing a little bit here. It's the same. Little bit at lower wind speeds, at 2.5 meters per second, which is just about 5 miles an hour. And then as you can see, there's a little bit of a difference here. This is where you really start to capture that 20%. So once you get into the 4 meters, 4 to 4.5, that's where GE is telling us, right? So this is all based off of GE projections, which again, you gotta trust those numbers because they actually exist and done these projects before. So that's what they're saying from our wind studies. This is what we're going to see as an optimization from the repower project. Now, obviously, that's all dependent on the wind too. We had the lowest months in August and September of this year than we've had in 15 years of operation from a wind output perspective. So this is very indicative on the wind.
Do you want to talk? Just roll around.
So Brett mentions another AES wind site that's down in West Virginia called Laurel Mountain. That project just got completed on a repower, very similar to what we're gonna have as far as technology. It's actually the exact same. But I don't have.
No results, but.
Yeah, I don't.
It's been gone already by a scheme that.
Yeah. So Brett, this might be from a timeline perspective, Brett might jump in here on this one a little bit. So obviously, what we're looking for, off-taker is the key here. We need NYSERDA as an off-taker to be able to obviously send their energy. That is currently ongoing in a draft phase for the bid. I'm sure some of you are aware we did submit a bid last year that I believe that expired in March, and we were unfortunately not targeted from NYSERDA. So one of the things that we're doing currently is redrafting that bid submittal, and I believe that is due
February 9th.
February 9th.
Josh is dealing a lot with the sort of RFP and bids being possible, but.
Yeah, by all means.
Yeah.
I know that's gone kind of back and forth.
It's a great point in this situation. That's where we're at with this repower is. And I mentioned earlier, you need to have a PPA or some sort of off-taker to sell your electricity so you can afford to build a repower. That's just common economics. But,
Yeah, and New York is always unique, how we do things, I think a little bit. And in most of the markets, you work out kind of a private PPA. You go to like a big energy user, say it's Google data center, like in Virginia, it's a big common off-taker of ours. You negotiate a power purchase agreement, sell your power to them. In New York, we don't really have that luxury. You kind of have a single buyer system, that buyer is NYSERDA. So NYSERDA, what they do is every year they offer a solicitation. They say, hey, power producers, AES, Energy, EDF, pick a renewable operator. Give us your proposal, give us your cost proposal, what, for all your projects that you want to put into our solicitation, and what you're gonna charge us to buy the energy in the renewable energy credits, essentially, from REX. And it's a great process that you have a guaranteed chance at offtake, but it's also a one-time a year chance at offtake. And that makes it a very important time of the year for us, for myself, and everyone involved in the development projects. To get your bid the most accurate, most importantly as possible, but as most competitive as possible as well. And you're up against every other developer to a finite amount of gigawatts, megawatts that are awarded by the state. And all these things that we talked about here, not operations, of course, that are kept. But permitting, interconnection, all pilots, landowner payments, all these things are predicated on the fact that we can sell our power under contract with NYSERDA. And last year we were unsuccessful developer, we were unsuccessful for a few of the solar projects. Well, as were many other developers. It's not uncommon to be unsuccessful. But this year, AES has gone all in. I mean, all in, 75, 80 people working every single day to run the numbers, crunch the numbers, find optimizations, redesign our site plans to make our facility the most optimized that they can be, the most cost effective they can be, the most productive that they can be, to really inform our bid price, to make sure that we come out of this solicitation that we enter on February 9th, and ultimately we'll know a few months thereafter if we get contract awards. But we feel we're very well positioned for doing the work to come back and come out of this with many awards from NYSERDA. But that is a key component to all of this, is to have somebody buy our power so we can make money.
Yeah, so to that point, thanks, Josh. To that point, this timeline is gonna move a little bit, depending on that NYSERDA bid. So ideally, this was the plan. Obviously you got a development phase that Josh talked some about, Emily would have talked some about that as well. The site improvements, that's where you're gonna start seeing equipment on the sites. It's from my perspective, Mike and Ron, you're gonna probably know just as soon as I do when that part of the process starts, for obvious reasons, just with the amount of traffic and equipment that we've got on site. And then obviously take another step to make sure the landowners are aware of what's going on. We don't want to deter any forward movement on the operations. And I've learned the hard way that it's just really easy to pick up the phone.
Quick question, actually, from Mike and I. Have you guys felt that you've gotten the attention you need and information you need based on for this repower?
Yeah, Emily was at our last board meeting, updated the board and few people that were there where things stood.
Yeah, so the phone call thing is very important. Feel free to reach out anytime if you need anything, but we want to make sure that we're ahead of this. You don't have to reach out, but anytime you need to. Call Jay.
Yeah, for sure. The regrets number, it's funny. So then obviously installation, the plan was Eltona, Bliss, Weathersfield. Again, that could move a little bit. I'm sure the timing is going to move because we know NYSERDA and how that results could go. That could be midsummer for all we know. So again, timeline more than likely. And I covered the ops update. And you get to essentially the floor's open for this group for any additional questions that you might have. I'm sure Cheryl's got one. I'm sure you do.
Sir, I do.
You may have said it and I might have missed it. During the repower, how long are they offline?
So, good question. It's going to be challenging right now for me to answer that entirely, just because there's a lot of moving pieces. But what I do know, the expectation is to be doing a turbine at a time. A string at a time, so a string could be as many as 7 turbines. And then allowing the rest of the turbines to operate while the working power is additional other things. But it's tough, but it's all dependent on the engineers, and it's all dependent on how they want to structure it. Unfortunately, I don't have a lot to say in that. We're just gonna be providing some ground disconnect here, reconnect there. And but I will tell you, we're not gonna see 151 or 408 turbines sitting down throughout a lengthy period of time. I do know it takes about 7 days if everything is in line. Once the tower has been decommissioned to commission.
Okay.
That was the tendency in Warren. Give or take.
Maybe something that the timeline part of it too there today. This is a quick aside. You know, we talked about low res and secret on 94C, now it's permanent. Right now, the Office of Renewable Energy has shown interest in taking a proving stance, and folks know here that are involved in that. To perhaps be an agency that wants to be involved, maybe lead that permitting process. And I guess, and I know, you know, full transparency, those conversations are happening, you know, with the office. And, you know, we prefer, obviously, yes, the secret route, that's the route we feel it should be going. We think the towns look at it as a great job governing these projects, and that should continue to be the case. But well, the office has expressed the interest to be a permit lead on some of these projects that we won't know what the outcome is of that for a couple more months. In timelines for 94C permit process are much longer. They would be under a standard seeker fee, negative declaration, conditional use, special use permit, site plan approval, various local plan process. A longer process that would affect the timeline, sure, but no decision yet. We're still working, but we can't go seeker around. We might get, you know, that would take.
That's a good point, Joe.
So I don't really have any conclusionary comments here, but I will say when Joe asked me to, you know, put a presentation together, talk a little bit about green energy, I immediately thought about surrounding myself with smart people. So thank Neil, Josh, and Jay for being here to say all the really smart things that have been said. Other than your questions, of course. Anybody else have any more questions or anything to follow up on? Anything?
I guess one of the things would be, as it's a repower, and as your contract is coming up to an end for the original community host agreement, I would assume that, for the two gentlemen that are working with you, the price per megawatt would be increasing, as you already have the system in place. You've already gone through a bunch of the lay down work, the wires, and now you're reviewing. But should they be expecting more money?
Yeah, you're looking at the wrong person.
I'm not supposed to that way it is right now. So
It all comes down to the inputs, right? I mean, we've been operating as we've been operating. We want to continue to work with the communities. We want to have the ability to extend life of these turbines so that these payments will continue. Jobs for all the local folks will continue. I'll continue to have a job. You know, a lot of assets here. So, you know, there's going to be many conversations about per megawatt pilot, but all that's. And
If you know that, for my sentiment, mine too, is I believe I have 5 more years left on the contract that we have.
you know,
With
the United Traffic. Yeah. And they're another big company in the industry too. They're very embedded in the community. I'm sure they're that's experiences. So, I don't know. They have problem. To me, maybe this group will lunch. So,
We have a whole meeting to go yet. Yeah.
Thanks, and I think we're on the weekend. Jack.
Thank you.
Abby's here. I was gonna give.
I can see it there, I think, but maybe. Yes, it's very, it's microwave. That the county owns, just trying to get a little information on that, one, who it's.
Brian Myers.
Brian Myers, okay. All right, sounds good, so. If Emily were to send something to you.
Office of Emergency Services.
Okay. Very good. Sounds good, easy. Very good, thanks to see everything.
Thank you.
Thanks, thank you. Good to see you.
See you later, Jay.
Thanks, everybody.
Gee, thanks. Good talk.
Yes. I want to give that. My way, and I heard CJ say they're giving me miles in 4-H. They're giving them Memorial.
Okay, now we're gonna here, first thing would be changing, meeting for December, from 28th to 21st, due to the holidays. We've already seen the PowerPoint and we've got, everyone there. Equality cooperation for New York State. Okay.
Actually, so, it's just an article that I had attached.
Is that in your paper?
It is attached,
It is attached.
but not a hard copy, electronically.
Okay. You can peruse that at your leisure. Okay, number 2, we will read this as a request for permission to attend financing meeting. For the 191st Ag Society forum. We have Sherman, Golding, section of representatives, Gardner.
Suits. So I put Joe in there, although I think Joe, I think the IDA would pick the cost of his travel if he wanted to go. And in years past, Jim has actually gone too.
Yeah.
This was just to show. This is what we can marker for how many people we can send, but not necessarily.
I didn't go last
It's
year.
expressed an interest to me in going, just. And I can make this work, we just need to know who wants to go.
Number 3 and number 4 go along right with this.
The ones with the blue check marks, so those are ones that I have verified online that these are the costs. I don't have anything yet on the membership for the Ag Society for 2023. And there is nothing yet out there on the Empire State Council of Ag Organizations. However, I can tell you, and I should change this, that the meeting for next year will be January 13th, typically the day after. So Thursday for the Ag Society and Friday for the CAO meeting. January 13th, 2023. However, none of that has been confirmed.
What level of sponsorship are we?
We found it 50. The patron sponsor.
I get a motion on 55. Thank you, sir.
And somebody just tell me if this list is correct and complete, or if somebody else wants to go.
Cheryl, originally Joan has gone to that season, so I believe that I am due to be in Albany around that time for Cornell. And I get back to you with you know, if we're, because if I'm attending, obviously John's not attending, we won't need a space. I have some, I just need to make sure that I'm someone for that.
Yeah, that's great, thank you.
Keeping in mind, Wyoming County continues to be the only county in the state that participates in this organization. That's why we're the leader. We are, we not going to be the number one and not participate in this. Agreed, totally agree. Motion is made by Mr. Irvine, all in favor?
Aye.
Justin.
Yes.
Hello.
I'm the shorts, you guys can go to lunch. I apologize for not coming. Oh my gosh, I go again, not off for very long, it's the 5 days in Italy. But we've been so busy at the shelter getting on a Wednesday morning, I think. But the best twice, and it's already this morning, it's crazy. Not much to bring, forward. I did bring some calendars. I thought I'd pass one or two around and see if you'd like them. Most of them are Wyoming County residents. The Animal Friends has made a calendar up like they did last year. And I have newsletters for everybody. Other than that, things have been going very well at the shelter. Adoptions are huge. I am getting calls from all over New York State. Our reputation is following us. We moved dogs. Jamestown, city of Jamestown wants to bring dogs up. They can't move down there. Yeah. What's that? Yeah, someone from Canada. Yeah. So it is a lot of these are pit bulls, and I have to tell you, I hesitate to take a dog. They can't move in their own area. So we are supported by, you know, Wyoming County residents. So I'm not going to be spending our taxpayer dollars on other towns' dogs, but they're apparently what's happening is they contract with like SPCA's and humane societies, and then humane societies are not moving the dogs up fast enough, so the towns no longer can take them there. They have to break their contract because they have no place to take them. So then they're stuck. And unlike our county, where we have one shelter covering all our towns, that's really what they need to have to solve this problem. But they depend on 2 or 3 towns kind of getting their heads together and taking a garage and reverting it, you know, into some kind of kennels and have 1 or 2 dog control officers take care of it. And that's kind of like how it is. Say if there's a contract with somebody and then they have to break the contract because there's no room for their dog, they have no place to take it. We have a lot of Fillmore people when they surrender dogs because they have no place to take them. One lady called yesterday, wants to bring 11 dogs to us from a room, and I'm like, I'm sorry, you know, you gotta find, there's gotta be someplace down there to help you. So I have taken a few here and here if I knew I could move them, but yeah, I'm not gonna stretch ourselves out. We're not very full, but I picked up 3 dogs Saturday, 2 dogs on Sunday, so I can have 4 dogs in there, and by Monday I can have 12. So, you know, it just depends on what kind of week we have. And I try to say that in our shelter, we only have 2 pens dedicated to surrenders. People who can't find a home for their dog and they need to rehome it. And then we screen them to make sure they're not a dog that's bitten somebody, because I'm not going to send that dog back out in the community, or if it's not people friendly. So, or animal friendly. So we had a guy who wanted to bring a dog at this night trying to kill cows. Well, I'm not going to take it. Just so we can euthanize it, come on, you know, we don't make that money, so. But that's how I've been doing it. We once in a while have more surrenders than I like, but it's because they kind of overlap and the state and that they're heading out, so. It is what it is. I'm just telling you, the towns have to work it out. I've talked to Albany about it, And they say, well, it's because you can adapt so well. And they know that, they're calling, they're desperate. Two-thirds of
I
it,
can't imagine, my dogs are part of my family,
Yeah.
are our family. I know somebody just recently gained a dog due to the fact that it was a husband and wife divorcing. They couldn't agree on who got the dog. But.
Yeah.
Who wants?
Just obviously, the good work that you've done here over your career.
Yeah.
As a dog control officer is being recognized.
Yeah.
Well, say. The other point is. Boarding in, taking dogs from outside the county is no different than boarding in inmates in the jail. We take care of the ones we get first,
that's right,
not everybody else.
yeah, and that's kind of my, I mean, I will.
But you're spot on.
Yeah, I will work with somebody a little, but
Sure.
sometimes I take lists of what they got and try to send people that way if I know that's the dog they, somebody I can care of. I even hesitate to do that because I don't want to be say I recommended the dog, he goes home and bites a kid. So I have to be really flat honest with people. I have no idea what this dog's about, but if you want a border collie, they've got an 8-month-old border collie they're trying to rehome, you might want to look at it. I haven't seen it, I can't guarantee it, my handwriting's not on it, but yeah, so I, but I am getting calls from all over. It's amazing. So, and we do get calls from Wyoming, West Virginia, about 4 a week. That I know as soon as I know their voice. And I'll say, she'll live on, we can't find our dog, and we live on, Peacock Hill, Long River Valley or whatever. And I'm listening, they don't give me a chance to say, Mia, are you in New York? And then finally they stop, and I'm writing things thinking, maybe they moved here, they just sound that way. And maybe Peacock Hill was their old address and they forgot, they lived, on Weathersfield Road. But so I'm writing it all down, and then I'll say, is this New York or West Virginia? No, down in West Virginia. Can you come and help me out? It's fun to listen to them, and sometimes they leave a message on the machine, and I always call them back. No, I really don't have to, but they probably are assuming their animal control officer knows their dog is missing and they reported it to the wrong state. So I need them to know they have the wrong place. It's fun. I have to tell you, I was just saying to Sandy yesterday. In 2002, I was diagnosed with my brain tumor. I remember the minute before they put me under, I'm listening, talking to the anesthesiologist after I was saying a lot of prayers, and I could hear my bones rattling this thing I was laying in. So I was shaking, so I figured I would never do it. I just didn't think I could. And I said to the anesthesiologist, if I could just get 10 more years, Sam, who would be my youngest, was 8. I just wanted him to see him become an adult. So maybe my other boys would remember me, but an 8-year-old not having mom around, I thought. And he said, well, I hope your prayers get answered. Sam will turn 28 in December. I got 20 years. So, and I've said over and over, I really never really worked a day in my life because I have loved this job so much. So I'm not kicking it in either for a while. I turned 62 last year. I still look at retirement as like down the road a little bit. So
We like to hear that.
I have trouble taking care of the building and stuff. I will tell you, I have to slow down a little. And it takes me a little longer to do some of the stuff I did quickly, but I'm hanging in there.
Wonderful job.
Oh, thank you, thank you. I'm gonna pass these out if you'd like to purchase them. They only have this pile left, and I can't be the board that's on it. If you would like to get one, all of them are Wyoming County drops, so and Wyoming County people, which is kind of nice.
Just if you want to leave your this one on that table over there.
They are $10 each, and you can mail the check to the animal friends or to the shelter. I'll make sure they get them. I think, Mr. Boyd, you have a new dog coming to your family. Nancy, it came down and Aaron is adopting a puppy. Yeah, it
No, that also.
is, I have a picture of it on my phone.
I'm not.
Just, I want to give you the money. I can go.
I think you're counting. Okay, sure.
Does such a good job. Our dog runs away frequently just so he can go to the shelter. She'll see a deputy go by and she'll like sit there and wait for him to pick him up and drive her to the shelter. Hang out for a day or two.
We know now to call you, we know which one it is.
I think she knows where the treats are and where everything is in the shelter, so she enjoys her day at doggy jail.
Oh my God, that's funny.
That's the one between, yeah.
We're either buying it or giving it back to her.
Oh.
They're $10.
What's our,
$10. They're raised, they just raise, they just sell them to help neuter and spay the dogs.
that's what here?
Wyoming counties, they're all Wyoming County people, Wyoming County dogs, yeah. Wyoming County stories.
Pay for it.
Animal friends, right?
Yeah.
Animal
Yeah.
farms.
And I think it's, newsletter.
So candy bar. I think I buy every.
I like the candy bars.
I buy the candy.
I don't
bar.
need them,
I
but I buy the candy.
I eat them. That's
They're free.
buy them.
Right.
You bring them out. I buy them.
Anybody have anything else with Joseph?
Yeah, I buy them. Need them.
I don't really need them.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Still standing, it's beautiful weather. Something raining.
Well, it's so.
This is true.
And
They're all good. The first one is, you probably saw that there was a Country Folks article about soil and water, the conservation. This spiraled really quickly over Thanksgiving, essentially. So in there is a quote that says it is from Cornell Cooperative Extension. They're in support of this coalition. That is in fact not true, and I will be having a conversation with Al to make sure he knows that we're obviously supportive of our soil and water conservation district. That was a volunteer for 4-H in Tompkins County who was quoted and said that they were speaking on behalf of Cooperative Extension. Not in fact correct. So Cornell Cooperative Extension Administration from campus has published a correction basically stating that is not our platform or our, we are not behind this particular coalition. They just quoted a volunteer who happened to say, well, I'm doing cooperative extension. So I just wanted to make that clear right off the bat. Because we're not support that platform, but it happened over the holiday. Article came out. I went and fact check to see that that person wasn't in fact an employee of cooperative extension. They're just a volunteer in Tompkins County. So just to clear that confusion. The other thing I want to touch on is farmland. I believe both Jim and Joe made the trip down that night of this meeting. Did you guys come out with Blizzard? So previously, Joe played a major role on the farmland planning piece of the committee and also the selection process for the farmland actually grants. Those are obviously two different wings. I have nominated Don to play a role in the selection committee for those awardees. Don has a lot fewer conflicts of interest, so Don can shout out my department than I had. So I served this year, but because I overlap with so many people in the county and Don overlaps a little less, having not grown up here and not knowing his name, it's a little easier to slot him in to that committee. So I'll be taking over Joan's role on the planning committee. James Gregg, Alex Water and I sort of inherited that from Bill Daly and Joan. And so we've been all reviewing all the pieces of the previous plan, which is about 10 years old now, and looking at all the pieces we're responsible for. The biggest piece, extension, is responsible for putting together all of the data from the initial survey and then assembling the steering committees with the board. We had initially put out a survey, Joan had put out a survey with her team last year, and we didn't get a great response. Part of that was the time of year it came out, it was not a great time for farmers. So we're aiming to do that again this winter. We will also be doing phone follow-ups. The tricky piece is that the third piece of that is that depending on what our response rate is on the survey, we'll have to go door to door. Which makes me a little nervous based on the response that they've gotten. The trash coats and some of the responses about soil and water, they have not had particularly nice thing. I want them to do a lot of door-to-door experiences recently, and so that makes me a little nervous. So we're going to try everything we can to get that done both via email and over the phone, and see what kind of data we can get that way, but we'll go door to door if we have to for those responses. James Bragg spoke to our contacts at Ag and Markets, because we initially had received an extension under that program when Bill Daley retired, and as long as we can show forward progress, we're all good, so thankfully there's not a real hard deadline there, we get that survey piece done. This weather, it's just all of us are a bit new to the project, so we kind of familiarize ourselves a little bit. Joe left us a lot of great files, but she also left us about 10 boxes of them. So it's taken a little bit to get through that information, especially because a lot of it is outdated. It's from a few years ago now. Other than that, I will probably, like I said, I will likely be in Albany in January at some point. We usually go and lobby on behalf of Extension and talk to a lot of our local reps. In Albany, it was once a year. We have not been able to do it for the past few years because of the pandemic. Since we are our first year back in person, there has been obviously a lot of change in terms of who's at Albany. We just went through our new roster yesterday. There are still elections across the state that have not been confirmed because there are races that are as close as 30 votes right now. So we're still kind of waiting to see who we'll actually be meeting with. A few of the committee chairs will be changing over. There doesn't seem to be a ton of impact on who's chairing, various maybe related to environment or ag, but there's a couple that will have an impact that is done as an extension for some of our grants. So we're just waiting on that news before we set that agenda. Additionally, we did have our 4-H celebration and award ceremony. We haven't been able to do that in person since 2019. We've been doing drive-throughs and pickups and everything else. So we had that at the Legion Hall a couple of weeks ago, right before the bad weather set in. So we timed that well. And we had a lot of people who were able to Zoom in. We had a lot of college kids who were able to on Zoom and actually call into the event. So that was very nice as well. We are currently in our active enrollment stage. So people are currently enrolling for the new 4-H calendar year. People are enrolling for the new ag calendar year. We are seeing some sort of strange trends in enrollment numbers. We have a big influx of younger kids, which is great. But we're down in some other areas that we didn't necessarily expect to be down, but it is early. What is going to be, I think, the statewide issue is that we have started to see families shop around county to county. Now, this has always happened. We always end up poaching a lot of kids from the neighboring counties for our 4-H program. There's nothing that says they have to be a resident of the county. They can choose which 4-H program they choose. So we have some, youth from Genesee, Orleans, Livingston. However, what is concerning is that parents have started to do two things. They either don't want their children in the same county competing against each other. So we've had parents now have one child enrolled in Genesee, one here, one in Allegheny, so their kids have to show pigs against each other. We have some parents who run up against rules in individual counties that they don't like, so they swap counties on the assumption that they won't have to follow rules on the same caliber in that county. So we actually saw this last year before. We had a child who wanted to go through our auction program here in Wyoming County. They have to complete so many educational events and obviously weigh-ins to ensure that the animal is fit for the auction and to ensure that they actually completed the educational pieces. Child did not want to complete those pieces. They went and sold that pig in Allegheny County's auction. Now Allegheny County didn't tell us what was happening, or they would have not been able to do that. But we're seeing much more of this, and parents just sort of shopping or diverting when they need to. And it's going to create some chaos because already we have parents, it's not unusual for a parent to complete a 4-H year in one county and then decide to switch, but they're switching 3 months in, 6 months in, 9 months in. It gets a result they don't like in the show. They switch counties. The kid decides I don't want to compete against Big Brother because their pig's nicer than mine. I'm going to switch counties. So nightmare. So each county in New York keeps track of their own enrollment, and then that is reported up to campus. There's not really a central reporting mechanism that makes it easier for us to track where these families are ending up or how that's working. We get that news usually pretty late. So that's something we receive 6 months after it has happened. And so everyone's aware of it. Everyone's aware is where it's happening. We're all just trying to keep each other in the loop. So different offices are calling different offices to say, hey, was this kid in your program? Is there a reason they're no longer in that program? This is the case that they violated, like they were caught drinking at a 4-H at another county. They want to be in the stand, right? There's no way for us to tell them why they left the initial county that they left. So we shall see that is happening more and more. And hopefully we can come up with a mechanism statewide to kind of at least track that. We're supposed to do exit interviews with families when they choose to leave the county, but if they don't tell us they've left and enrolled elsewhere, we're not gonna do an exit interview. So lots of work, we should see how that shakes out, but it's a statewide issue, so we've already seen it happening. That's what I got. We're, you're an ag enrollee, reach out to us. I will be bringing next week a couple press releases of the annual report, copies of all our mailboxes, but other than that, we are just getting to our end of year reporting and.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Shall we go to, Jim Bragg?
Yep.
Ag Farm Land Protection Board, 4-year term, effective January 1, 2023 through December 31st, 2026. Cooperative retention number, Donnie Savage, as Abby just spoke, and farm member Tom Cormack. Vacating for Gus Youngers. And Don vacating for replacing Joan. That's a hard shoes to fill there, right?
We all are sort of filling it. So Joan served not necessarily as part of her job, but as part of being Joan, served on about every county committee related to ag in some capacity. So Don and I are filling in where we can. Obviously, neither of us is Joan, and we can't afford to replace Joan's position. So, if you're seeing gaps that don't fill, fill that aren't being filled, please let us know. We're trying our best, but neither of us is Joan. And we can only do what we can do. Don's also going to take over Maple School, but I will be there as well. So.
Anybody know Tom Cormack?
Oh, yeah.
Did you talk with him, Joe? Joe, did you talk to him, Tom? Did you talk with him?
Yeah.
He's okay? Okay.
Yeah, I talked to him a week or two ago, yeah. He's ready to be on it, or happy to be on it.
Okay, anybody want to make that motion for me?
Yep.
Thank you very much. All in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Soil and water, Al Fagan, review draft legislation. Threatening New York conservation districts.
I can address that, Brian, if you'd like, what it is, the Northeast Organic Farmers Association, or NOFA, and they're working to rewrite the New York Soil and Water Conservation District law. And what they want to change the makeup of the Soil and Water District boards to 7 from 5. They will need to be elected, kind of like the Farm Service Agency does, and to remove the Grange and Farm Bureau Board members. We have a Grange now, Ron McCormick, and a Farm Bureau member, Walt Rena, and add a NOFA member. So that's what their proposal are. I'm on the NYACD board for New York State. Represent 9 counties of Western New York. We meet once a month, and this is, of course, a hot topic for us. I kind of feel that soil and water districts, especially the soil and water district in Wyoming County, brings in a lot of money and do a lot of things, and I think they want to get their hands on some of that money. Supervisor Burwanger is going to take some of this literature I've got here to NIFAC, so we can get it on the agenda for the NIFAC meeting. We can get some NIFAC
Meeting tomorrow. So I'm taking it with me, so I can talk to. Handles our committee. Will bother and sure that it's on, because you don't have it in ahead of time. It doesn't go through the process, so we'll be right on. So it'll be considered that.
I did reach out to the Council of Ag Organizations, to talk about it, and they never called me back. I had a few years ago, I tried to get NISAC to get on that board, and the president at that time wasn't interested in it, and I thought, well, maybe I'd try again. I called the number I had, and the message that I did, and nobody ever called me back. So
Who's the executive assistant on that?
there's a lady's name that,
There's a lady's name.
She's pretty good.
yeah, and she never called me back. So
Yeah, and their website wasn't updated yet with the 2023 stuff for the CAO meeting in Canaan. month from now, so.
Yeah,
But I don't think they're really full time throughout the year either, so.
Well.
There's a Sue Bruce, I don't know if that's her or if she's with,
Her name was Sue. I don't know
yes, yeah, they're-
her last name.
it's gotta be her.
Yeah.
I'll look when I get back to the office today.
I've got an email, if you want an email to try to get hold of her. And for it to.
Okay, just to check that out, why
When the
There's
agenda-
really no action, I don't think that we could, it would have been nice to see some sort of a resolution.
where we could either. Like this letter that's attached, if we were to send a letter.
If we could change Charlie's letter and maybe make it into a resolution. Might be a resolution.
Don't see, hopefully we'll be seeing the, that the resolution came out nice, yeah, we'll support that resolution, I hope. January, February.
Even if they want us to pass a resolution, if they could have, we read it, we would be.
We can still do that.
Exactly.
they wanted to get, intercounty involved in it too, make them aware.
See that on Shelley's letter, that went to Intercom,
Okay. So there.
yeah. It didn't go to NICEAG, but it did go to Intercom.
Shelley Stein is the chairman in Genesee County, and she used to be the chairman of the Soil and Water District over there.
Yeah.
We
Okay.
were supposed to have a meeting with the Erie County Soil and Water. But because of the storm, we didn't have it, not gonna have it in December, but maybe we'll set something out of there too, from the joint board.
Again, as you said, it seems to be somebody else's idea to increase their funding.
Yep, yeah, that's what they think the bottom line is.
Okay, did we catch everything?
I think so, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, is there anything else?
You know what, there's one more thing. This just came in yesterday. It's the final report for program year 2019-2020 for the Wyoming County Finger Lakes Lake Interior Watershed Protection Alliance Program, which you've heard some of what they call SOLA. So I don't have it on there because it just showed up yet, but I will put it in the minutes. They figured instead of holding it over. That's it.
Yeah, this is here, and we just do it. And it'll be attached to the minutes anyways to take the view of it that way. Anything else coming before the ag committee?
They've set out, I don't know, maybe the census of agriculture. They want all the farms to, they do it every 5 years. They want everybody to do it. You can do it online. They mail something to you.
They will follow up with a billing if they don't get like a online response in a certain amount of time, but it is huge, it dictates a lot of the money that, we can. Extension, soil and water, so if you haven't taken it, I recommend taking it.
I think it has to be done by the middle of February, something like that.
I think it's February.
In the presentation that we just had too, with the solar, especially Brian and I were at nice among their green space versus green energy, where it, again, it's not farmers that are being competed against for their land. And
Yeah,
And downstate, they don't care. They have no care for the farm.
Yeah.
That's all about, we gotta have it, we gotta have it, we gotta have it.
the best one for farmland protection is the landowner.
Right. Right, so the state doing that, it's a state ran program, farming protection, and then the green energy or the renewable energy over here. Subsidizing the solar panels.
I mean,
So I think you got a landlord sitting there in the middle, well, do I wanna take this one-time payment, or do I wanna take 30 years of them? Well, same payment, 30 years.
30 years probably takes up what you make for your conservation easement, you still own the land. Conservation easement, somebody else's name's on the deed, but
Right. So I don't know, you know. And the biggest thing, you talk to that guy there, the infrastructure is not there.
Yeah.
They don't wanna do anything about it, they think the feds, downstate thinks the feds are gonna help us. That was the comments made in this past NISAC convention. The feds are not gonna help us. Well, they didn't help California, they haven't helped Texas yet. Why is New York gonna do it? They're like, well, you know, and I brought up. We should be putting it on in power lines, we should be putting it underground.
Yeah.
For the weather grid. Oh, no, we can't do that, that's way too much money.
But everybody out of electric for 3 days or whatever.
Right, when the freeze is out, you can't, fire.
You know, I noticed that with Thanksgiving Day parade was on TV, I said, boy, you know, they bring them big balloons down, there's no electric wires there, you know, they're all underground.
The East Shore used to be, all Main Street is lined with them. When they did Main Street, there are a number of areas where there's not.
Makes sense. Talk about, you know, changing everything electric, my neighbor's gas dryer put on them, so they went to buy a new one with Home Depot. Can't buy a gas dryer at Home Depot, only electric. Because of this, you know, by what is it, 2035, you know, they want all their food to be electric, so Home Depot isn't even selling gas dryers anymore.
You know, if we press looking for it, maybe we should be pushing this at NISAC too. Upstate is looking into building a new plant. And they just make it electric. It's 50% more for just the electric equipment versus the gas operating,
Natural gas.
a natural gas.
I talked,
It's 50% more just the equipment, let alone the cost of electricity.
Yeah.
And they said when they, the last one they did, they had to build the substation. Power the gas operated plant. They had to build it. Well, if you need that much more electricity, that, you know, that cost goes on top of it too. So what's gonna happen here when New York State goes all electricity? We're gonna be shipping our raw milk across the state line because Pennsylvania's not doing it. And then bring it back, and then it's gonna cost the trucking and everything else, fuel costs. There's no answers here.
I talked to Stan Klein last night after the Republican committee meeting, he just come back to the upstate meeting. And he heard there that this Fairlife wants to put up a big milk plant, and they want it right in the heart of milk country. Here, or, you know, Cayuga County or something. I'm gonna call on Jim Pierce today and said, we better get on this. And I said to Stan, the first thing they gotta do, put some bucks into the infrastructure for the waste from it, you know, not just built the plant, you know. But
Gotta have that.
yeah,
Water, sewer. Treated.
Why was Tops out of milk?
that,
Why was Tops out of milk last week?
I don't know.
I don't know either. It was all over Facebook that Tops and Save-A-Lot didn't have any milk last week.
I heard that too.
I didn't know if it was the snowstorm that stopped it from coming out. Cause I mean,
I think I saw that also on Brasses.
yep, Brass Arcade didn't have it either, Arcade Tops or Brasses. It was weird. I mean, I think they had Upstate, but they didn't have the other, their brand, which is the same stuff, I think, right?
I don't remember that.
It is.
I think Tops is Upstate milk, just in a Tops shell.
Just to the.
So it was weird, that they said like you could get skim in 1%, well, of course, this is Facebook, so. But I did see there wasn't any in the shelf when I was at Tops, that you could get 1% skim from either label, but 2% or whole was out in both. Weird, it just, you know, I don't think production changed any, and, you know, there wasn't a big exodus of a large farmer to create that, it was just strange. I'm assuming maybe because Upstate Niagara is Buffalo way, that the snow may have delayed delivery out our way or something, but.
I'm sure that was. I mean, maybe a portion of it.
Well, there was milk trucks that sat, you know, in Barilla, waited a whole day.
Cause they
They
couldn't
saw
get
the
through.
truck up there whole days before they could get into Dale Road.
That must have been it, is the snow, you know, had the whole chain.
Yeah.
The trucks coming out, this is the officials.
Brad told me he owns sure line marketplace. He said, I need the truck today. He says, we can't get it there till Friday. He says, this is for Thanksgiving.
Right.
He says, here it is, one of our biggest shopping days, and we had a problem. But I went in on Friday, sure enough. Everything was loaded then, but
We went, Rochester way, like before Thanksgiving, and they had everything you needed, but Arcade didn't have it, so it must be that, I was assuming it was the snow, I just wasn't sure if there was another backstory.
Jim, one of your questions about the amount of electricity going through the lines and stuff.
Yep.
One of my thoughts too on that I didn't bring up while we said here was, at the same point, they shut down what Dunkirk, Huntley, Somerset. They shut down all of these.
Yeah.
So somewhere along the way that has to open up capability from what they're producing here.
you would think.
You can think, but. And maybe that's, again, instead of having these great big coal generation plants at these locations, now they have a whole bunch of smaller, that was going to get the solar.
So much that line was huge. Oh, I delivered there.
They tell me they reach out and pick up a coal car, pick it up and dump it, put it back down. Yeah.
They got coal by the train.
Rainbow, trains.
You go up there, there's 100 cars of coal sitting there. Next day, they'll be gone. I don't know about next day.
You know, Polish all over down, right?
I haven't been out there.
Status, so it's well,
I don't know.
I haven't been out there. That was a couple months ago, I thought the status.
Okay, nothing else, there. The fair.
I got nothing.
What about the fair?
Everything else I've been reported.
Back up this month, but supposed to go down after this.
Yeah.
Not very much, but. 5%. But who knows, market changes.
Anything else coming before you? We are adjourned.